You will lose someone you can't live without, and your heart will be badly broken. But this is also how your heart rises again. A quote by a well known author and novelist, Anne Lamott. My guest today, Priya Pinto, embodies this rise. Her heart has known loss. But what you will meet in Priya today is her quiet strength, courage, and grace with which she has navigated her journey and is now empowering more women to do the same. I came across a reel a few months ago where I saw Priya passionately speak about her support group. Something so endearing about her that I reached out almost instinctively. Our first meeting, we were so unhinged in sharing the most profound, deepest experiences like two old friends do when they meet after a long time. And subsequently, every meeting after that was just the same. Priya is a transformational coach. She's the founder of a support group called Widow Warriors that she founded after the sudden and tragic death of her husband 11 years ago. She's a TED speaker, an author, a theatre director, and an incredible mother to two wonderful children, Johan and Yana. From the other side, it gives me absolute pleasure to welcome Priya Pinto. Priya, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. Really, I'm very honored to share this platform with you.
And finally, I have you on this couch.
Yes.
Priya, would you take us back to your early childhood days? What were your experiences or rather influences in terms of social, cultural, perhaps religious, that you would say have gone on to shape the woman you are today?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Sometimes we take our childhood, so for granted, but it just shapes us, right? In so many ways. So, born and brought up in Bombay, I still call it Bombay, in a typical, middle class Catholic family. If you know what that means, that's a lot of partying and singing and food and music
people.
and yes, and praying too.
Yes.
And I think if I look back, there were three things I think that really stood out to me in terms of who I am today. So one was, in Bombay, we all live in these apartment blocks, right? Colonies. We lived in Garden Colony. And one thing I saw very early on, many of my neighbors would come to our house, and for my parents for support. And it was just, if they were going through a tough time, they would come, and I always saw my parents, make time for them. And it was just sitting and listening to them. And of course, I was a kid. I was not privy to the conversations, but I could see them coming in really heavy. And by the time they left, they were smiling. They were so grateful. And I think that really, stayed with me. That support and just helping someone can be just as simple as listening to them. And I see that, in my life is a big thing that I do. I really help people in a way, just helping them share their stories and listening to them. Another thing that, in my sense of community and bringing people together, I think I can go back to my father had gifted my sister a table tennis table for her birthday. It was not even a normal table. He got a carpenter to make it so it would fit the little water tank in our building. And that became the hub, and all the kids used to come and play, and that was great. But every year during Christmas time, he held a tournament. And I saw not only the building transform, because he made sure he lit it up, he bought, trophies, and there were competitions, and there were drama and singing and everything around that tournament. So the building transformed, but I saw the people transform too. During that 1 week, there were neighbors who we actually would probably not talk to each other. We never saw. Everyone was out. And it really like bringing people together, and the magic that can happen also was something that I see is what I do in my life. I think I'm known for bringing people together, whether it's for a social reason or for a cause. I think I'm pretty much that glue. I think in terms of resilience, which is what, a lot of people associate with me. My dad used to work in the merchant navy. So my mom, we were three girls. So she was looking after three girls, and they were very entrepreneurial. They had two small businesses. So three girls and two businesses on her own for most of the time. And I would remember she would get up at 4:30 in the morning, go to get flowers from the flower market, then come because we had a florist, and then come back and get, take collection of the frozen goods because we had a cold storage. And somehow she was there for, all our studies. The house was immaculate and we ate great food. So someone who, just was, just kept going. And my dad was on the ship during the Kuwait War. And we didn't know, for a month we didn't have communication. We didn't know in those days because everything was cut off during the war. And I remember my mom used to clutch onto the radio and just try and listen to the BBC with the hope of hearing that the ship was still, around. And even during that tough time, that she didn't shirk in her responsibility and life went on. And I see so much of, that in me too.
Clearly, one can sense the role models that you had very early on is who you learned from, right? The sense of community, the force of collective was everything that you had experienced as a child, which is something that very organically came to you.
Absolutely. And Farzana, I realized that children do as the parents do, not as the parents say.
Being the childhood that you had, and like I said, there is such a sense of joy and happiness and coming together. But if I was to trail that and fast forward it to you and Schuler,
Yes.
and you both were school sweethearts,
Yes.
and tell me a little bit about how that happened, the love affair and the marriage. And I also remember you telling me that it was so perfect that you'd often sit there and think, it is so perfect that what could be imperfect?
Yeah, I did. I remember, in fact, a month before he passed, I was having a conversation with my father, and I remember saying these words to him. I said, Dad, I'm so happy. I'm scared. I don't think one person is supposed to be so happy. So I think I did have a, sense of how blessed I truly was. Yes, an amazing love story. This episode won't be covered, but I met Shula in the church choir when I was 9 years old. So we were married for 14, but I was blessed to have shared a major part, more than 30 years of my life with him. And I think having someone who loves you and in such a special way from such a young age, he also shaped me in many ways of always being there, for me, and always being this, he was the most giving soul too, and just happy and loving. And I think a lot of his spirit is in me today. So yes, so we met, and it was a long love story. And then he came to Dubai as a young engineer, and I got married in 2000 and followed him here. And we grew. We started off our life in Karama, and then we moved to different, like a typical Dubai story. Very, very blessed, in every way. And
he loved football.
And he loved football. He really did. He played every Friday for 17 years. And so, in a way, it was probably fitting and the best farewell for him because he did suffer, his fatal heart attack on the football field, on Valentine's Day, on, 2014. So, it was completely unexpected. First of all, he was 39 years old, didn't drink or smoke, played football every Friday. I mean, at least he loved his football, right? And, he worked for an American company. So there were medicals every year. So, there was just nothing. There was just no indication. We had gone skydiving less than a month ago. We had done the 10K run. There was nothing that could really have prepared me. And like I said, both kids were under the age of 10 and, hadn't lost their teeth as yet. So it was completely unexpected. And it was, yes, I won't minimize the loss. It was devastating. It was life-changing. But honestly, Farzana, the blessings, both before and after, have been so many. And I really chose to focus on that and, move forward.
And that's quite evident in what you do today. Priya, theorists talk about 5 stages of grief, right? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But that life doesn't quite work out in that linear fashion either.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And doesn't necessarily give you the leverage of processing it in that manner, which is grief. And especially when you live in a country where you don't have extended family, um, when something as tragic as this happens, so sudden as this happens, you've got to jump into legalities and formalities and, more importantly, manage your children. Priya, when did you realize, process your grief?
So today I know grief very differently. And I think more than anything, if, I want to use this platform to the learnings that have helped me, and they
Please.
probably came a lot later. If I can shorten that path of being in pain and being in grief for other people, I think this conversation would have been really worth it. Today I know grief to be a choice for Zana. All the stages that you think about, that's just programming. That's the way we've been taught that, those are the stages that you have to go through. I saw a very beautiful reel on Instagram of a father who had lost his son. And believe me, I've lost my partner, but I can't think of anything, more tragic than you losing a child.
Yes.
And it really affirmed it when he said the absolute same thing. He said, whether I'm sad or whether I'm happy, it isn't going to bring my child back. So I choose every day to enjoy the joys of life and live a whole life. And I think, that's the way I've processed my grief now and help others to do the same. But, you know,
And in a way, I
yeah,
just
go
want
ahead.
to say this, that you don't really heal by going back to what broke you, but you heal by going towards what frees you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Absolutely. It's absolutely that. But like I say, if you stay focused on what you have and what you want or where you want to go versus what you've lost, that's a game changer. And though I didn't know it, in this way at that time, if you're asking me, that switch was right there in the hospital, right there in the ICU, because I had to break the news to my kids.
oh dear God.
And at that moment, it was like something did come. First of all, his heart had stopped 20 times, and I'd seen that entire process of them reviving him, right? And the last time, I just, they don't allow you to go there, but I went and I just, whispered in his ear and I said, you can let go. It's okay. I'll take care of the children. And, they could never revive him after that. I think he was just holding on, like I said, for me to come to an acceptance. And when I was there and I was breaking the news to my kids, and I just knew in that moment that they don't have a father, they cannot have half a mother. And I was so clear about that I would focus my life into making sure they had the life that both of us had dreamed of together. And I think that was it. And, yes, of course, did I have my moments when I was in fetal position in the bathroom and I had to stop the car because the crying was so much, and I was afraid that I would meet with an accident. Sure, supermarket lines were the way. For some reason, it's not that he used to accompany me to the supermarket, but that's where the tears would flow. I went through all of that, but I didn't take over my life because the focus was the kids and the life that I had to build for them. So I think, yeah, it saved me in many ways.
Would you say if somewhere the processing of grief also led you to write the book that you wrote?
Oh, absolutely.
And I have to
Yeah.
say, the title of the book, which is Ma, Will Life Ever Be the Same Again? And every time I read it, I have a lump in my throat. And if you can just tell us a little bit about what went behind writing this book.
Oh, absolutely. No, every word in this book is true. It's exactly how it happened to us. So the inspiration for writing this book actually came because of the widow support group, right? When I was meeting these women and they were sharing their stories, I saw them going through the same phases. I'd been on the journey longer. That's it, right?
Right. And when did the support group start?
It started in April 2021. So, because I had a friend who worked as a volunteer in Rashid Hospital.
Right.
And because she had seen that outwardly, at least, Priya seemed to have it sorted. She was taking care of her children, she was steady. So she would keep sending these ladies to me. Unfortunately, she met a lot of them being in the hospital, right?
Right.
And these ladies would enter my house, literally with their shoulders drooping, the light gone off in their eyes. And, I could see.
Understandably.
I recognized it, right? I recognized it. And we would sit just like this and I would share my story. And by the end of it, I promise you, their shoulders were back and they were literally floating. And they just said, if she can do it, so can I. It was just about seeing the light and
Gosh, and that's so powerful.
and that was so powerful for me. I said, okay, if sharing one story can make this happen, what if we all get to share our stories? And that's where the idea for a widow support group happened. It was in the midst of COVID. So that's an even harder time. So
How many of you are there in the support group?
we're over 30 now. When the first day was, the first time we met, we were 5 of us. And we met online because we couldn't meet.
Right.
But, the power of a support group, Farzana, it's in anything, I think,
Yeah.
in anything, because that's a space where everybody understands everyone, so you're seen where you are in your journey. You're completely valued, you're understood. There's one of the ladies in the group says it the best. She said they're constantly adjusting each other's crowns.
Oh, beautiful.
It is so beautiful. I mean, I can tear up whenever I talk. I love these women so much. And it's beyond that. It is beyond dealing with our grief, right? It's now all about healing and growth and being better mums to our kids. So it's amazing.
And that's what led you to write.
Yes, so I was seeing them making the same quote unquote mistakes that I had made, right? When I looked, Farzana, I looked for books. I'm an avid reader to just help me navigate the kids' journey.
Right.
And there are books about death, there are books about hope, all of that. There's no books about how practically your life changes. That was not there, right? See, overnight, I had to change house, change school. Their mom, who was always at home for them because I was a writer, I used to work from home, was going back to work, right? I was not even picking and dropping them. Like I told my broker, take the house where they can cycle to school. So much changed. And that's besides the fact that you lost your father. So how do you explain that to kids?
Yeah,
How do you help them navigate through that? So that was the first, the first story is helping them look at change in a positive way. And that's that was the first
And there
story.
were 6 stories.
There is, yeah. Then after that, when things settle, that's when the grief really hits you.
Yeah.
And 3 of us were processing grief so differently. I was hiding. I was crying in the bathroom. My son was suppressing, and my daughter wanted to talk about it. And, and I didn't even know that they knew that I was hiding and crying until one of my friends said, so what's the lesson you're giving your kids? That when life gets tough, you're not supposed to cry or talk about it.
Express it.
Yeah, so just about how we can all process grief differently, and that's what will make the pain go away. And then it's about why are people treating us so differently? That happens, and it's not that people are bad. They just don't know what to say. And how can you support them in, supporting you? And that's even in schools, though people are trained, it's a different experience completely.
Yeah, it's not lack of sensitivity, but it is lack of understanding.
Absolutely. Just not have been in that, position.
You don't want to play the wrong thing.
Yes. Yeah. And then when your kid says, Ma, I'm forgetting dad's voice. And then having to just, keep that memory alive and finding ways to honor them in that way. Making new traditions. That's, believe me, you're doing okay. And then a birthday will come, an anniversary will come, Christmas will come. And it reminds you of your loss all over again. So, starting new traditions with the kids made such a difference. And then just giving yourself permission to go forward. So these are the 6 stories. And I would see it, for example, because we had a memorial, there was a big photograph of my husband. And after the memorial, it came home. So it was at home. And I didn't understand the impact it was having on my children, because if that's the first thing that people see, they keep on wanting to talk about that incident, and the kids didn't want to talk about it anymore. I mean, your 7-year-old comes and says to you, and she says, I'm tired of being the kid with the dead dad. And I would see one of the ladies in our group, she made a roll-up of her husband. Again, I understand she wanted his presence at the dining table, but I knew the impact it was going to have on her children. And that said, no, they're doing what I did. I need to be able to share this story. And, that gave rise to the book, because at least we had each other, but this can have a broader impact on people who don't have the support group. So yes, that was the inspiration, very, very close to my heart. And I've had so many people tell me, it really surprised me like I said, I wrote it mainly for families with young children to help them navigate loss. I've had people who are divorced who've come and told me it resonates with us. People who've lost their parents a long time back said, "Oh, I never knew that my mom went through that." So yeah, it's been
I read the book.
impactful.
And when I did, the one thing that I felt was this is not a book that is limited to someone who experiences loss by death. Every one of us has experienced some form of loss, and loss of a relationship, loss of a loved one, and loss of a pet.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
The book works for all of that. And that is incredible for you to be able to pen it so deeply that it just resonates, cuts across.
Thank you.
Priya, increasingly, I am learning that life doesn't always give you the answers you're looking for at that time,
Mm,
but it gives you moments,
mm.
and moments that shape you, that that make you more resilient, give you courage, give you hope, somewhere reinstill faith. Yeah. And that's the moments that you find even in this book. And I think that's just such a powerful book to have to read. And I think everyone must have a copy of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
How does one get this copy?
It's available on Amazon, and here in Dubai, it's available at McGrudy's also.
Right. Ma, will life ever be the same again?
Yeah.
Priya, you've said this that going through your loss was almost like walking through a dark tunnel
Yeah.
of pain. And your objective with your support group, Widow Warriors, is to shorten this journey for someone who's experiencing this. When someone comes in,
Mm.
what part of you do you see in them in the early stages of healing?
What part of me? Oh, so everyone you can see, like literally the light gone off in their eyes. There's a difference, just in the way that they carry themselves. But I want to tell you that I see the immediate change when they're surrounded. They can come in really heavy, but then they're surrounded by women and they're hearing the stories that's similar to them, and these women are smiling. These women are doing really well with their lives. And that changes them immediately. So yes.
I have a very close friend who also lost her husband when her kids were very young. And she said something to me that completely shocked me. And at that time, and I'm not quite sure if I'm honest, that even if I understand it completely today. And she said to me, death is overrated. What would you say?
Oh my God, I want to meet this friend. I want to hug her. Ah, okay. It's it's a shocking statement, and a lot of people, might not be able to digest it.
Yeah.
But she is absolutely right. What I do as a coach, and I help people who have, whether it's death, divorce, loss of any kind, literally find the joy back in their life. And the number one way that I do that is to help them understand that they're just running programs. They're running programs, whether it comes to, specifically, even whether it comes to life and whether it comes to death. We think that's the way we're supposed to show up in the world, and that's
Conditioning is
it is
isn't it?
conditioning. It is conditioning. So our conditioning, our upbringing, our early childhood, they shape the way, right? They help
Right,
us write
absolutely.
codes for us,
Right.
and we get wired with this code. And when that happens, we think this is the way we're supposed to show up because that's the only thing.
Because that's what's modeled for us.
Exactly, exactly. And that's it. I give them a new model of reality. That's exactly what I do. That was the right word to use, because there was a story told to me when I didn't, but it was taught to me. I rebelled and I said, "Are you telling me like my grief is a choice?" And I was upset to hear this, right? And I was told this story that if an alien, okay, were to appear today in Western society and he saw someone pass away, right? And he sees people crying and people, some cultures you tear clothes, you cover mirrors, you don't eat, you don't wear black, you don't go out. This is how, Western society deals with death, and everybody's very sad, right? And then this alien is transported to South America to a tribe in the Amazon. And then again, he witnesses death. And here the people are celebrating. It's the happiest day ever. They're like really happy. Now, objectively, if you were an alien coming to live on Earth, which which part,
Oh, yeah.
which life.
No
Definitely
prizes for guessing.
no prizes for guessing, right?
Yeah.
The Amazon way. Now, reality, that's how that is processed in the Western world. Reality, there is a tribe in the Amazon that celebrates
Really?
from the time that they just said going to a better place, whatever, for whatever reasons,
Of
they,
course.
they, you know, they've been told to celebrate death, right?
Yeah.
The only thing that's not true in the story is an alien, but because an alien stands as someone who's not been conditioned.
Conditioned. Right.
And that will tell you that, yeah, okay, it is our conditioning. That determines how we process, death and grief. I do it. I think I honor my love and Shula every day. um, I, I was talking to my group and I said, this is the way I understand. There are two types of grief, okay? There's the first type of grief, which is, I'm missing you. And I think that grief is a part of being very human. And I think that will always be there. Like next year, my son graduates, okay? I'm going to go and I know I'm going to tear up and I'm going to say, oh my gosh, your father would have been so proud, right? But that's a good type of grief. It's a happy memory. I might shed a tear, but I feel very blessed in every way, right? The second type of grief, it comes disguised as the first, which is like, I'm missing you, but in reality, it's I'm feeling sorry for myself, and I would hear it in our group, right? Today, my tire burst in my car, and if my husband was here, he would have done it. And yeah, so, okay, what are you really grieving about?
Right.
Be very clear.
Very
It's
clear.
not him. It's the fact that your life has changed. Now you're feeling sorry for yourself. And I would tell them, at least distinguish between these two. And if you still want to feel sorry, it's okay.
Yeah.
If you want to be a victim, it's okay, but at least be aware of it.
Yeah.
And then they say, no, yeah, I don't want to, and this is not how I want to live. No one wants to live life as a victim.
How well structured and put, because it just makes it so much easier, right? And I just think also, Priya, some chapters in our life don't necessarily seek closure. They seek understanding. And this whole rush to move on needs to stop. In fact, if we can make space to move along with this loss, we still move forward.
Yeah. I think you change completely as a person, right? So you'll always have this within you,
One of the things that that we know and we understand from this conversation is a support group, Widow Warriors, emotionally anchored a lot of women. But apart from that, you also get into a bit of advisory in terms of financial, legal, right?
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I've just been so blessed, Farzana. I think the world is such a nice place to live in. Especially, I get tired when people say Dubai is such a plastic city. That's not been my experience at all. I've lived here 25 years. I have met the most soulful people.
Absolutely.
So energy you give out is the energy you receive, right? So if I just mentioned it, I would have people say, can I help? Can I help in any way, right? So the first thing that we would have been struggling with is like finances. That's a big deal. So I had a friend who was really good with finances. That come, can you just talk to the women, right? And help them budget. And then there was a parenting expert who came and spoke to us. And then there was a healer and different people. It's not only me, people within the group. If there's anything that can enrich us in any way and help in our journey, we bring people in. So that also is part of, what we do for sure. Recently, you had, a health series and women from the group went there. So it's, yeah, you're definitely one of those people who absolutely give back.
But this is Dubai. I think this is a place where we come from various cultural, geographic backdrops. But there is a sense of community. There's a sense of collective that works so beautifully here. And it's only here.
Yeah, I feel it. I really feel it. For me, this is home. And, like you said, might not have blood family here,
Yeah.
but just that.
But so many relationships
Yeah.
that we surround ourselves here with make up for that.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
What are your 3 non-negotiables, Priya, that you practice every single day?
Oh, wow. One that was actually life changing for me, okay? And even when I meet people in grief and they can't do anything, right? I tell them just one thing. Can you do one thing? Can you go for a walk every day? And when you go for a walk, can you just listen to a podcast or a book? That's all I say to them. And you as much as you're crying and you're depressed, it's hard to say, okay, I'll go for a walk.
Yeah.
It changed my life, and I've seen that one single habit change so many people's life, because in that walk I get my intellectual stimulation because I'm reading a podcast or a book, and believe me, the universe will make sure I get just what I need to listen to that way. They're
Yeah.
so beautifully,
Yeah.
right? My emotional and spiritual also get taken care of because I reflect on, what I've heard and less. And of course, there's the physical. I'm starting my day, walking around.
The endorphins
so
are
that is it. So, something that gives me, like I said, mental, spiritual, physical nourishment is that daily morning walk. And that is a definite non-negotiable. Continuously learning, Farzana, is, and, it may be from that book, it may be from a client that I've interacted with.
any source that stimulates.
Yeah, that is just so important to me. It excites me. Um, Dark chocolate after lunch and dinner.
Love it.
I have to say it. I would be lying if I tell you the only the good pounding one. But chocolate is a very, very
Not as an antioxidant is what I say to myself.
absolutely. And I think talking to my kids, I make sure they might be, so far away from me, but talking to them every day is also a non-negotiable.
That's fantastic. If there is only one thing, Priya, that you could tell every single person in the world, what would it be?
Wow. So you started with a quote, right?
Yes.
So I will tell you my favorite quote. So my favorite quote is Rumi's. In fact, it's in my book, and that is, "The wound is where the light enters you." Right, and that for me was so profound. So I would say to anyone who's going through a very painful incident in their life, right? I would say to them that pain is not punishment; it's a portal, you know. And if everybody understands that, if it's when you're going through something so difficult, and if you have that mindset that it's here to teach me something, there's a lesson to be learned, there is some healing to be done, there are some beliefs, self-limiting beliefs that have to be released. If you get all of that, when you see pain as that teacher, then you literally step through that portal into a higher version of yourself. So if I have to leave, yeah, that's the one message I would say to, everyone, that you may be going through something very difficult now, but see your pain as your power and the path towards your purpose.
It's a pain to purpose.
Absolutely.
Priya, thank you for coming and sharing your story because clearly this is a story that will inspire and empower a lot of women to believe that there is a better way out. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having.
Thank you.